Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address this committee and to discuss the rise in autism spectrum disorders, its impact on post-secondary education, and the allocation of government resources for ASD. As we've discussed, the CDC now indicates that 1 of every 88 births in America results in a child diagnosed and living with autism spectrum disorders. As these numbers are staggering, students diagnosed with ASD are now of age where they are applying to higher education institutions across the United States in the same record numbers. It is estimated that within the next 2 years, 1 of every 100 college applicants will have an ASD diagnosis, and this is just the beginning of the wave that has been characterized as epidemic. In 1984, the Learning Differences program at Mercyhurst University has educated and assisted nearly 1,000 students with disabilities to succeed in college, earn a degree, and go on to make a difference in the world. In 2008, Mercyhurst introduced the Asperger Initiative at Mercyhurst to meet the unique needs of the growing population of college students diagnosed with Asperger syndrome and ASD. The AIM program focuses on building a foundation of self-advocacy, social skills, and sound academic progress. Thanks to an appropriations grant in 2009, we did receive $100,000 from the U.S. Department of Education, and we were able to launch the AIM program. 2 short years later, in 2011, Best Colleges Online ranked our Asperger Initiative at Mercyhurst number 3 in the nation on their list of impressive special college programs for students with autism. Mercyhurst President Tom Gamble emphasized that Mercyhurst believes that capable students, if given the environment and opportunity to succeed, will do just that. Dr. Gamble has committed Mercyhurst to continuing the development of the Asperger program. Very few colleges and universities across the United States offer a program of collegiate support like AIM for this cohort of students. Too few are equipped to educate college and post-secondary students diagnosed with ASD. We have found that AIM students are able to excel academically, but most have a great need for internships and job coaching. Few have ever held a part-time job or understand the nuances of the workplace. The Department of Labor and Industries Office of Vocational Rehabilitation has been helpful in providing support for our AIM students, but is limited to only supporting students or employees, and neither internships nor job coaching are covered under current OVR restrictions. Jane Tearfield Brown cautions in her book, Students with Asperger's Syndrome, A Guide for College Personnel. The 1 in 88 number of incidents cited by the CDC will begin to be realized when overeducated and under or unemployed adults with AS are brought into the welfare and social services systems. Individuals without jobs will pose a burden on their families, on insurance companies, and on federal and state social services. This is not only an unnecessary but also critically unfair to a large group of people in our society. To prevent this scenario, changes must begin now. Mercyhurst is dedicated to educating and preparing all of our graduates for productive careers. We've tried to develop partnerships and have with the Verizon Foundation, the PNC Bank Foundation, Conquer the Canyon, and other private donors. The next step for the AIM program is to fund and launch our internship program for our seniors and provide job coaches as needed to prepare them for the workplace. The AIM program has been cited as a model program and has implemented a majority of the innovative components of the program with limited resources and opportunities beyond the commitment of the university. It is our hope that a strong consideration is made for allocations of government resources to fund programs like the Asperger Initiative at Mercyhurst that assist students not only in receiving a college education, but also in helping them become productive citizens in our society. As a provider and a father, I strongly feel we need to act now before the task before us becomes insurmountable. Thank you again for your time and this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry, for your testimony. Mr. Carley, you are now recognized for your testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would ask for just a little bit of leeway since, having only been asked to speak Monday morning, I haven't had the same amount of editing time as many of my colleagues. Just a minute or two would be most graceful.
Well, do your best and we'll work with you.
Thank you very much. As the Executive Director of both ASTEP and GRASP, and on behalf of both my boards, I would like to thank all the members of the committee here for having me to speak. I bring two concerns, both of which shed light on a population of people on all sides of the spectrum and on all sides of the many controversies that exist in the autism-Asperger world, who are simply overwhelmed. And I hope to be able to stress the negative consequences on us all when so many are enduring financial, logistical, and emotional stresses of a magnitude that might surprise you. My first concern is the more standard apprehension concerning the direction and prioritization of government funding. Currently, the emphasis is on government research, and there is good herein, as well as fairness, for there is a vastly disproportionate amount of research funding for autism when compared with infinitely less prevalent conditions. All that said, however, research is based on the future and not where our greatest need lies, which is in the present. Today, the services we collectively offer is paltry in comparison with the true need that's out there right now. The majority of our families still do not have the appropriate services, interventions, or educations available to their children, and adults on the spectrum are starved for appropriate housing, therapies, and employment opportunities. And if fiscal concerns are indeed something which we measure things by, then let's think of that adult who, if they are able, in a job employment program, to become a tax-paying, productive member of society rather than existing on government support, seems to me like a financial no-brainer. And for those who are not able to participate in programs like that, think of the productivity that is lost because the parents can't produce like they used to. Why we never consider the fiscal cost of not providing services is still a mystery to me. And I disagree with some of the testimony we have had here before. We are not amidst a health crisis. We're amidst a services crisis. My second concern has to do with how we implement whatever direction we take in terms of the tone or the language being used. Now, tone or language may seem like PC, self-help, feel-good spin to a lot of people, and I understand that. But it's not for someone on the spectrum who grows up having to hear words like cure, disease, defeat, and combat, words that have no medical basis given the genetic component of autism. For though we may improve dramatically, we're born with this, and we will die with this. And such negative self-imagery makes self-esteem so much harder to achieve for an individual who is at a psychological disadvantage, enough as it is. We have to remember that the majority of this population now can read what's being written about them and hear what's being said about them. And as we all grow, whether we're on the spectrum or not, we need to hear about what we can do, not what we can't do. Autism is simply more complicated than any of us want it to be. Try as we may, we cannot sloganize it, we can't dumb it down. And historically, our refusal to accept the complexities of this vast spectrum has created a competition of suffering amongst ourselves that has made the autism world and its politics one of the most emotionally unhealthy atmospheres you could ask to work in. Is this because we're all so overwhelmed, thanks to unmet service needs, to process these different lives in a more productive manner? I think the answer is yes. Now, I was lucky. When my then 4-year-old son and I were diagnosed with Asperger's in late 2000, I was at a point in my life where I had a family, I had a career. It was a weird life. I was a starving playwright by night and a minor league diplomat during the day, working in such places as Bosnia and Iraq. But there was proof that there was possibility within my son's diagnosis. Most other parents might have resorted to praying that their child could have a future. Thanks to my diagnosis and the life lived up to that day, I had the advantage of evidence-based conviction, not hope. And self-esteem was the most formulative factor in all of that.